Yes, people, welcome back to GNA TV and Chelsea Fan TV. Match reaction to Chelsea, Brentford versus Chelsea, 0-0 in that game. We're going to have discussions about the game, about certain players, about the club overall, about some players' performances, player ratings, stats, a couple of things really. Quite a lot to go through today as well. So make sure that you guys are smashing the like button, subscribing as always to both GNA TV and Chelsea Fan TV, guys. Make sure that we're doing that. Lots to get stuck into. So you want to get your thoughts and opinions as well throughout this show as well. So make sure that we are smashing the like, guys. And let's get stuck into it because there is a lot to talk about. There's a lot that I want to talk about as well and share. We will be opening up the lines as well to allow you guys to come in and have your say. We see that over 30 people already in here already. Slowly, people were coming in. But before we move forward, let's cue the intro. Yes, people, welcome back to GNA TV and Chelsea Fan TV. I hope you guys are well. Chelsea, they brought up a stalemate between themselves and Brentford, 0-0 between both of these guys in the game. And there's lots to speak on, lots to talk about, lots to get stuck into. There's been sort of a mixed bags feelings across Twitter for the performance itself. One certain player getting a lot of criticism on the performance himself across the timeline as well, in the name of Kai Havertz, who we're going to be talking about today as well. But I want to go through the chat first before we start getting into things and say my hellos like I always do. Big up to Simon McCready that's in the house. He says, good afternoon, GNA TV. Gutted about the result, although it wasn't a loss. Outstanding again from Kepa, saved us a point. Man U seems a tougher game now. Trev is finally getting a run. True, bro. True. Again, we're going to talk about Kepa, Chalobah, and them guys soon. Big up to Andreas as well. He says, I'm a big Havertz advocate fan, but I cannot defend him anymore. And again, abysmal performance. He should not start any game until Carabao Cup. After yesterday's performance, look, I've still got my scarf of Kai Havertz next to me. Yeah. It is hard to defend such performance. I can fully understand it and I fully back it. It's not something that we can defend, especially when he played like he did yesterday. And I'm going to talk about that a bit later on again in the show as well. Do you think we are in a title race maybe if we won? I think it's just still very too early to be talking about anyone being in a title race, to be honest. What we 11 games in. I think until you get to around December, January period when you start seeing points, the points lost, points won, the gaps being made between the other teams, I don't think you're really going to get a physical idea of who's in the title race. Arsenal looking good at the moment. They're on a good run of form, but I do expect a blip at some point. So, it's still all up in the air from what I'm saying. Big up to Stream Elements. Nice to see you. Hope you're well. This is bot running. Stream Elements bot running. Big up to you. Don't know what that means specifically, but big up to you. Chelsea OG, big up, brother. We'll try calling again later. No worries, bro. Deal CFC in the house as well. Nice to see him as well. Lee Taylor is here. Need Sterling to start scoring again. No Premier League goals. And you know what? This is where I'm going to get the avenue that I'm going to go down to today. And some people may want to listen to it. Some of us might not agree with it. And again, it is what it is. We all have difference of opinions. But Kai Havertz didn't have a good game yesterday. Don't get me wrong. But when you look again at the performances of our forwards in the last couple of games, I would say that it hasn't been very good. And what is that again? We're going to talk about that. Big up to Shaq as well. Shaq's in the house. Nice to see you. Chelsea fan, nice to see you. Chelsea database. Kai Havertz is the worst on earth. Come on, don't say that. Don't sing that. I mean, at the moment, it feels like it, doesn't it? Feels like he's the worst on earth at the moment. Dill says, bro, had few chances yesterday. He's still learning his trade. Bro, I'm happy he got given the opportunity yesterday. Hard game, tough game. A game that I thought could suit him with his physicality, getting up and down the pitch. And, he had moments yesterday. His speed was terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. He looked the business, in all fairness. He looked decent for me. I know some people were not happy with his performances. I was listening to the space yesterday and some people were moaning about Broha and his decision making, which I agree to a certain extent. We'll talk about that in a bit. Jim, I'm losing the will to watch Havertz. How did he not get subbed off earlier? I don't really know. to be honest, he should have been taken off. And again, you know, you look at the forward line and their overall performances and how they all played. They didn't all play well, but Kai Havertz, when you spent the money we have on him, when you want to see him kick on, move forward, and I've always stood by this, as much as I like Kai Havertz, and I really do like him, he has to kick on. He can't continuously be dropping these bad performances. Eventually, he's going to lose his spot, and people like Christian, Pulisic, etc., are going to be given the opportunity. And if they take their chances, like Kepa did with Mendy, they will stay in the team. And that's the thing with Kai Havertz. If he doesn't wake up, if he doesn't start turning it on, because at the moment, I don't think it's the ability thing. I know a lot of people talk about the ability of Kai Havertz. You know, what is it? What he does, this, that, and the other. I don't think it's that. I don't think it's anything to do with that. I think with Kai Havertz at the moment, for me, it's the mentality. It's this at the moment. It seems like the lack of confidence. He's not being able to, you know, get over, you know, whatever it is that he's struggling with at the moment in terms of on the pitch. I'm talking about. You know, he doesn't look comfortable in himself when he plays. He looks awkward. He's making wrong decisions, and I don't know what it is with Kai Havertz at the moment. It's very hard. 10 out of 10 from David. Big up to him. Nizzy, nice to see you, Chelsea fan. Deals as well. Everyone that's in the chat, there's over 60 of you guys here combined. Big up to every single one of you guys. Make sure we're hitting the like, so guys, please smash the like button, please. And also sharing your socials, Twitter, Instagram. Let's try and get some new people over here subscribing to the channel as well. But yeah, big up to every single one of you guys. Now let's get into it, because there is a lot to get into, and we're going to talk Kai Havertz and others a little bit later in the show as well. But I want to obviously talk about the stats itself and how the game went. And yeah, Brentford with their 33% possession to Chelsea 66, 14 shots to Chelsea, 8 for Brentford, 5 on target for both, 3 off, etc. We had more, but percentage passing and whatever. That's fine. We lost the aerial duels, but talking about the overall game, how it went, how did it go? I mean, the first 15 minutes, as bad as we was just how good Brentford was. I thought Brentford had the energy. I thought they worked hard off the ball. They were linking up well. They were not giving us time on the ball. There was no respect. And I said that yesterday in the show. I said, I don't think they're going to give Chelsea the time on the ball. I think you might see that they press high, but then sit at the same time. And they'll take their chances moving forward. And the way that they played yesterday, once Chelsea lost possession of the ball, was that they transitioned better than us. They transitioned better than Chelsea. They moved forward better than we did up the pitch. And, they look more dangerous. And that's worrying for me. And I don't get how, even under Tuchel to a degree, I don't get how we struggle to transition fast and quick. I don't get it. I do get it, but I don't get why we struggle to do it. I don't get why we can't just up the gear and move the ball quicker. You do that, you make space for yourself, you make more chances for the forwards, you make more chances for everyone. But in the first half of that game, one of the real big issues in that first half was the final ball, was the final pass into the players. Runs were being made left, right and centre. They just wasn't playing the balls in quick enough. And even if when they did play the balls in, they weren't effective. They weren't good enough. And I'm talking from Aspilicueta to Jorginho to even Kovacic when he came on. And I thought Kovacic, when he came on, balanced the midfield. It helped because Conor Gallagher was struggling massively before he got injured. Coming on with Kovacic helped, but our final ball and the creativity from what's behind being played in, it's just not good enough for me. It's a real big problem, and it's a part of the problem. And as much as we sit here as Chelsea fans and moan about Havertz, and then we moan about Pulisic, and we moan about Ziyech, and don't get me wrong, they all individually have to do better. I get that 100%. But when you look at how we transition, how we actually play, and you look into it in more detail with your eyes, you can see that, I feel when you look at it, you can see that even under Tuchel, and I feel like with Graham Potter, we want to keep the ball. And I think both these managers want us to move the ball quicker. I don't think we specifically have the correct profile of player to do that, or players to do that. I think there's a couple of things that we actually need in this team still that we don't have to get the best out of this system. And when we do have injuries to key personnel like Reece James, who are one of our creative players, we struggle. Kukurea struggled a bit yesterday as well, and I expected him to be more progressive from that side. He didn't start, and that is, individual problems in terms of the way that they're playing. But in terms of the whole team, I'm looking at the system, the style. Yes, we made changes, and I get that. Yeah, but it goes back to what I said last season. How strong and how consistent and strong are these group of players that we have when we have to switch around like we're having to do because we're playing 2 games a season, two games a week. When we're having to switch the players around for resting periods like we did with Thiago Silva yesterday, the people that are coming in, what level do we get from them, and how do they perform? How does the system benefit from having them in there? Yeah, that is a problem for me. And at the moment, when I say to you guys, I'm still not sure about these players, and when I say it, I keep talking about these crop of players, the consistency to be able to perform at the level that they need to do, game in, game out, for us to be successful. I don't think I feel comfortable in doing that. It's, in trusting them still. I trust certain players. I just don't feel that the players that we have in this system are good enough for us to see this system flourish over a 38-game season. I'm just talking about specifically the Premier League. I'm talking about the Premier League in itself. There is not enough creativity. We don't move the ball quick enough. We continue to still play sideways football. No one really wants to risk take and play balls quickly forwards to the forward line. And I'm not saying Havertz doesn't deserve to get criticised or whoever, Sterling, Brower, because they still, when they get put in them positions, are not doing enough. But I don't feel like the whole flow of what we're trying to do works. And I hope that Graham Potter sorts that eventually. And maybe he just needs time with them and his own players or profile of players that he wants to get the best out of this. A bit like what I said about Tuchel. I carry the same energy from what I had with Thomas Tuchel. I carry the same energy with Graham Potter. It's the same thing for me. Our midfield is still a big problem. People can choose to ignore the midfield situation, but the midfield is not good. Our midfield is not good. It's not that good. It generally isn't. And we had to, and then on top of that, you look at it all over in regards to the manager side of things. And I think Graham Potter deserves to have a bit of criticism on yesterday's game specifically, because he chose Ruben to play in wing back, who is our most informed midfielder, forced him to play off there, which I don't think he did too bad, but still, you could tell he's not fully comfortable being there. I keep saying it's not his position, and then on top of that, he decides to muck around. On top of that, he decides to muck around with the formation, and then on top of all of that, we get into half time knowing that the system and the flow is not there or it's not working, and we decide to continue with that same system and crop of players, or the 11 of players that started, into that second half, and then we decide to make substitutions like 65, 70, 80. And then we start seeing an improvement because the subs made an impact, which is in many ways quite normal, because when you're on the bench and you come off, you want to make an impact, and you can there's an argument for Aubameyang that should have started, but I get why he was switched around. And I'm not really angry that Brower started, because I want Brower to get minutes. Sterling, as much as he started off very well, I'll be honest with you guys, from my opinion, I've not been very impressed with him up to this point, but even he, in his own way, and none of us Chelsea fans are talking about it, in his own way, he's struggling a little bit to get into it. And it might be because we're playing him as wing backs like we did again yesterday and whatever else. But even when I saw him play closer to Aubameyang, I was at Villa Park the other week, we still struggled. He still struggled to get in the game and get involved and whatever. And I know it's very easy to look at Kai Havertz and that, and we not really know that he had a bad game. But my thing is, why are our forwards actually struggling to be consistent? What is it? Why is it not just like Havertz is struggling, Pulisic comes in, plays well, then he struggles usually, and then he comes off, and then we throw on Sterling, and Sterling obviously starts games, but then he struggles and disappears out of games. Aubameyang has started off very well, but had a very poor game against Villa and disappeared completely because we couldn't get him involved. Lack of something, I keep saying, creativity. There's a lot of things that go past just pointing fingers at one player, which is what we do on the timeline. It's not just about Kai Havertz for me. It's not just about Pulisic or whatever. Yeah, it's not just about them. It is a little bit about them because we could have better profile players maybe that can enhance this system. But there's more to it from an overall collective. And when I look at how we play still with these crop of players, doesn't matter what manager we put in there, we still seem to be very in gear 2 mode. I want to do lefts and backwards and rights, and and we don't have that creative spark through the deep line. We don't have someone that can just get the ball moving quickly or take the ball forward and release it quicker. Ruben does it, but even his final third passing is not always the greatest. So, I think instead of us all, I find it very lazy when we sit here and moan about one player all the time. We're going to moan about Kai Havertz today. Yeah. Next week, it would probably be someone else. And then the week after that, it might be someone else up front. But when is it going to get to the point where we sit there and go, why are our forwards struggling? Why can't we get this to work? Is it the chemistry? Is it because the mix is not right? Then you have to look at the board. Or is it because we're lacking other things across the system that's just not allowing us to be consistent when we're playing and the forwards aren't able to enhance that? I don't know. But we're going to get into all of that. I've got Forward here. Forward, how you doing, bro? He's disappeared. Forward will be coming back in a second. Yeah, I mean, I will read out some comments. Over 75 of you guys here as well. Big up to every single one of you guys that are in here at the moment. I just introduced Forward, didn't he? Disappeared. I'm sure he's coming back in. Back in. There he is. His device is not connected. Oh, there we go. Yeah, he's in now. He is in. Forward, how are we doing, my man?
I'm doing good, brother. How you doing?
I'm all right. I don't know if you was listening to what I was saying for a little bit. I haven't really got into it, so I even started, to be honest. I've got things to go through in that. But yeah, I mean, let's talk about it. I mean, what was your thoughts on yesterday's game, and what do you think or feel about what I just said about how it's easy to point fingers at individual players, and I get that because they're not performing, but there's more to it, if that makes sense, from what I've seen.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I completely understand what you were saying, and I mean, I agree. Listen, I think it's easy for us as fans to sort of come away kind of emotional after the game and be like, oh, who do we scapegoat now for this performance, and who do we put all of our blame on? Because this week it will be Havertz because he didn't have a great game. Then maybe against Man United it will be Pulisic if he comes in and starts and doesn't have a good game. If then the week afterwards it will be, I don't know, maybe then people start to blame Broha or Sterling or Aubameyang, or maybe Ziyech gets a game and we blame him. Like, it can't just be just about blaming individuals. Certainly, we do have to look at the bigger picture. Obviously, that said, we are Chelsea Football Club. We are spoilt by nature. I said it yesterday on the space. We are spoilt by success that we've had for many years. And I think we have to accept that we need a certain caliber of player at our team, and we have to accept a certain level of performance. And of course, when players aren't performing consistently at a certain level, then you have to look closely at them. So obviously, we will get into individuals later, but just in regards to the game itself, again, for me, it's always about perspective. In terms of how we've been performing recently, obviously towards the tail end of Tuchel's time, and obviously now on the par. And I feel like the performance against Brentford wasn't great. It was just okay. I think it was good enough to potentially get a win, although obviously I recognize that Brentford had a lot of good chances themselves. So I don't think it necessarily was just a terrible performance. I think it's kind of been in keeping with what we've seen a lot on the par. Obviously against a tough team, a tough place to go. But having said that, it is a place that we should still go and win because, again, we can go there and struggle. I understand that completely, but it's still a place that we should go and believe that we can win. And even a game like yesterday, we can at least go and nick it. Because, again, Arsenal went the other day and they beat them comfortably, I think 2 or 3-0. So there's no reason why we can't go there and believe that we can win. And, ultimately, obviously some good performances from the likes of Kepa, who, again, I've been a huge critic of the guy. But his last 2 games, he's been man of the match, and fair play to him because he had to make a lot of good saves, a lot of saves in quick succession. So fair play to him for that. But some of the defenders had some really good performances. Ultimately just not enough in the final third to kill off the game and to get the goal that we needed.
I agree with what you're saying. And look, we're going to talk about players, and instantly I think players deserve to be spoken about because certain individual performance doesn't help, right? And that's an issue because if your players can't be consistent in this team, in a club that plays in 4 competitions a season, that's a problem. And this is why I always go on about this crop of players. And I talk about this crop of players. I don't just say 1, 2, 3, or 4. It's the crop. Is that I'm not too sure. And I do think there's some of them that are consistent. And then with Reece James, Thiago Silva, etc., that we know can be consistent in their own forms. But I just look at them and I just feel that sometimes it's just a little bit more than just 1 or 2 incidentally players. Is it the fact that the managers are trying to play a specific system and the crop of players that they have that have come back to like the Maurizio Sarri days? Is it that they can't get them to play to the level that they require their system to be at? And is that then a player thing? Like, this is what I'm trying to get. Or does it just miss 2 or 3 or 4 things? Because for me, when I look at it, I still think, and I had this conversation with you yesterday, didn't we? We had this conversation and I said, look, there's more, even though Kai Havertz was bad, and we can talk about it, and like we said, Pulisic might be, and then it's Sterling, whatever, and we keep pointing fingers at 1 or 2, 3 players. Granted, we can talk about that. But why is it that we're struggling to get these, why is it that we're struggling to tick and be consistent throughout a certain period? Like, we'll play good for 2 games, and the next minute we could be absolutely shocking and have 1 shot in the game. Why do we go from there to there so quickly? What is it? Like, why? And I just feel that, is it maybe the players playing the system are just not fully, like, they can do it to a certain degree, but when it comes to doing it consistently and playing to that highest order, they just can't do that. And that's why we see such drops of levels in our performances. And I just feel that could be quite a problem for us. And I talk about the midfield. And when I talk about the midfield, I talk about all of them. I just think that we lack something in that midfield and we don't really benefit from it in terms of the transition element where we try and move forward quickly. Kovacic breaks the lines, but he doesn't specifically have the greatest final third ball. Yesterday, he tried to do it here and there. Some went off for goal kicks. Others, he paid to play too quickly and the players didn't read the forward line, didn't read the runs or whatever that they wanted him to do. Jorginho, comfortable at recycling the ball, moving it, but it doesn't specifically give you that energy in the midfield to get forward quickly and release the balls quicker and be a creative element to the squad. Ruben Loftus-Cheek, great at breaking the lines, but his final third decisions making's let him down. Sometimes I feel that he holds the ball too long before releasing, in moments, and and that's just his style of the way he plays things. Because for me, he's not a 6 still; he's an 8. He needs to be further up. He needs to be the one receiving the ball, and at the latter ends of the pitch. Are we just missing certain profile of players to enhance what we're watching and then be more consistent? Do you get what I mean? From that, that's what.
I understand.
That's the issue, and that's why I don't trust these crop of players, because I don't feel that they've, from what we've seen back to, you could argue maybe up to Sarri's, from Lampard to Tuchel to now where we are with Potter. It doesn't matter what manager we bring in, and it always seems to be that they struggle to connect. Sometimes I understand. I look at them and I'm like, do they actually train together? Do you ever feel that when you watch them? Do you know what I mean?
I mean, no, I definitely do feel that.
I don't feel like I'm being really bad and critical of Chelsea right now because we drew in it. A point might be good if we beat Man United on the weekend, right? But at the same time, I've been saying this for a long time. I've been going back to even Tuchel, and I love Tuchel, and I was thinking of him, but eventually it was like, when are we going to start talking about this? What is this? Is it the crop that we have? When do we start looking at the way that we're playing and what the managers are asking to do? Are they good enough to do it, or are they just not the right profile to do it? Do you get what I mean? So
I get 100% what you mean, bro.
It's definitely there's definitely question marks there, for me. And on top of that, you can maybe point the fingers at Graham Potter yesterday, can't you? I think we had this discussion already in terms of lineup, maybe too many changes for our liking. What do you think?
We can. I think we'll leave Potter aside, like, for now, because again, obviously he's new. We can obviously question a little bit his tactics, certainly certain team selection, obviously from yesterday, and even in-game management. But again, to answer your point about obviously why essentially we struggle to have some sort of consistency in the final third in terms of consistently creating big chances, scoring a lot of goals, and obviously being on par with a lot of our rivals who have been consistent over the years. Like, you look at, obviously, again, Liverpool are in a bit of up and down form this season, but generally over the last few years in the final third, they've always been able to get a consistent amount of goals, whether it's Salah, Firmino, Mane, and recently Diaz, Jota coming in. they've always been able to perform and put up goals. And obviously, Man City, it goes without saying how consistent they've been. Um, to kind of give you like the clearest answer that I can in terms of my perspective on how things are, I think it's best that I sort of paint a picture of where I thought the team were going into this season, because
Mm.
everybody can kind of say what they think now, but it's best to sort of look back on how you've actually thought things were going.
Yeah.
And for me, obviously, we're going into the season with Tuchel, and I fully expected us to be in another top four battle. I didn't think we could close the gap on City and Liverpool. I wanted us to close the gap and hopefully finish third. But I knew that the gap was just too big, and with the players that we had, even though we spent a load of money, I just
Yeah.
didn't think that we addressed the right areas and we got the
I
right
agree.
profiles of players to improve
I agree.
the team. Because I've
I
been
agree.
saying for the longest time, again, I've said that we hadn't played good football since end of November, early December last year. Again, the period that we destroyed Juventus 4-0 at home. Um, and then since then, we had so many poor performances. Obviously, again, we had certain things with injuries, COVID, obviously Lukaku's interview, which didn't help things, and many incidents. And obviously, then the Abramovich situation, obviously the war in Ukraine, loads of things happened, right? But we hadn't seen consistent good football for months on months on months.
I don't
So for
enjoy it,
me,
bro. I don't enjoy it. I
yeah,
told you. Yeah, you did the same. We don't enjoy what I don't enjoy watching us. I'll be honest with you. Like
no, I haven't
it's not.
enjoyed watching Chelsea in many months, many months. And even recent games, while we've been a little bit better, I thought Wolves, funnily enough, with a very much changed 11, was actually
Mm,
quite enjoyable. We should have put more goals past them, but you know what, that was actually quite enjoyable. But even like the first AC Milan game, I wouldn't say that was great. I thought like even first half, we really just benefited off of their mistakes. I thought
mm,
Benassa, who was a quality technical player, just gave away so many silly balls that led to us having set pieces, and then obviously we got our goal. But again, Jem, you know, watching Chelsea, a lot of
mm.
our opening goals come from set pieces or penalties or
Yeah.
like things like that. They don't come from brilliant pieces of play. And obviously, once we get the goal, then we start to see a bit more confidence in the players. We start to create more. Maybe we see a bit of magic from Reece James, but that reliable piece of magic that we maybe see from a Reece James, we don't get that from any of our attacking players. And again, that's why I said going into the season, we need to address some key areas, because we don't have an amazing passer of the ball that is able to break the lines and has amazing creativity, right? We didn't have that.
Mm.
Also, going into the season, I said that we don't have this amazing 1v1 dribbler. Again, you mentioned it yesterday, and I've been saying it for the longest, that we don't have
Yeah.
anybody that can go and take the ball on past two or three players, or just even attract those players like an Eden Hazard used to do, and then open up space for other players around him. And then also going into the season, I said that we didn't have a natural goal scorer, somebody that fits the system is going to get you goals. Because again, some people like Lukaku. I kind of was one of those people. And while he was a proven goal scorer for Inter Milan and again, Everton, at the start with United, but not fully, and obviously with Belgium, he didn't fit the way that we played, and he wasn't a
Mm.
consistent goal scorer for us. And again, we may have looked like we were going to fill that void with Sterling and Aubameyang, who
It's
are
not enough.
proven goal scorers in their own right, but
It's
it's
not
not
enough.
happened so far. And
No.
again, I think Sterling's a good point to bring up on, because again, yesterday he was not very good off the bench. Again, that is a game where, in theory, you would like Sterling being a big money signing, being the guy on the most wages. You would like him to be the guy that steps up and
He had a
drags us
great
through the mud
chance.
and gets us the win.
Did he
Yeah, he
not have
did.
a very good chance? He was in front of. Why did he take so long to just kick the ball? I don't get it. You know, he just allowed he invited the tackle to happen to him. Like
Mm.
I don't get. I don't know. I just is it the fact that we're playing him out of position? He's played wing back at Villa. He's played left wing back yesterday. Is it that? I don't think
I
it's
mean,
that.
yeah,
But
it's very interesting what Potter's trying to do with him, because I think Potter recognizes as well as we do that we don't have a natural 1v1 threat. And I think he's
mm,
tried to sort of play Sterling as a wing back and invited him to try and be that guy who goes past players. And I don't think Sterling's really great at that. I feel like the only time we've seen it in recent years, because again, at Liverpool when he broke through, like he was electric, and a lot of his game was going past players. But in recent years, other than for England, we've never really seen him sort of like be the man of the team and really like say, I'm going to drive this team forward. Because for Man City, he very much played into the system. And
yeah,
again, on Sterling, again, it's all there in terms of my tweets and everything at the time. I said that I didn't want Sterling. I don't think Sterling's going to be a great fit. Um, Obviously, when he joined, I was like, okay, hopefully we see the England version of Sterling from that Euros tournament where he's driving the team on forward. He had the most dribbles, I think, recorded at the Euros. Like, he was a menace. But we've not seen that version of Sterling. And as for yesterday,
mm,
that one chance you talk about, it just comes down to technical security, and he just didn't have the first touch that allowed him to then have a one touch and then maybe it's a two touch finish or a three touch finish at the
yeah,
most. Instead, he took 3 or 4 touches. By the time he decided to get the shot off, he was blocked. And again, it comes down to Sterling not being technically the most amazing player. Again, we've seen that he's not great 1v1. He can do it a little bit, but he's not a Rafael Leao, if we're going to be completely honest. So again, that's the player that was signed to be the difference maker for us, and he just isn't that.
But he was. I always said this, and I stressed this throughout the summer when I've done transfer shows and whatever. And I said this to people. 150 of you guys here, though, smash the likes, guys. Let's do that on both Chelsea Fan TV and GNA TV as well. Just get these likes up as well. Thank you for tuning into here as well. Keep getting your questions in the chat as well. But yeah, when we were looking into the summer, when we was looking at the summer window, and I looked at Sterling coming in, I thought, yeah, what a great player to bring in. Premier League proven, third highest forward, I think, in terms of goal scoring in the Premier League from a winger's point of view. I'm talking about from where he plays. Like, you know, he's got it, you know. But yeah, he done it under a great Man City team, partly under Liverpool and whatever else. But I always stressed that it was never enough. And I always said to people, him is good, but we need more than him. And I always said, and I agree with you. You went back to what you said about having that dribbler. I think Sterling can do it, but he pick and chooses again when he wants to do it. As when you look at a profile of, I'll give you 2 profiles, right? Leao, we already seen. Yeah, when he gets the ball, what's the first thing that he thinks of in his mind that he's going to do? He's going to run at you, yeah, and he's going to dribble and he's going to try and beat his man. We don't have a consistent player that attracts opposite players to him and does that. When you do that, it creates spaces for others to run in and benefit from. We have too many players at the moment that want to go to ball, play little 1-2, and then run off into a space and try and receive the ball. But it's very predictable and easy for sometimes the opposing team, because all they have to do is watch the runs. There's not anyone that's actually committing them to go to the ball, right? And that's why when you look at Mount, Havertz, you know, Pulisic should be doing it. You know, yesterday he done it partly to a degree. You know, Ziyech doesn't do it. You know, Aubameyang makes the runs. You know, he's a striker. It's different. Sterling is one of them that should be doing it more consistently. Leao will do that because he will get the ball, and if there's players running off him, he will take on that player to create the space for himself, pull players with him because they're going to try and stop him, and then knock the ball into and be effective with his final third passing or crossing into an area where people are there in space. And that's the difference is what I'm saying in terms of creating more for the forward line. Yeah. Zaha is another one who I think, even though some people may hold their judgments against him, he could potentially be going for a free at Palace. He's another direct player. You give him the ball, his first idea is to run at you, take players on, be direct, you know, open play. We were apparently looking to get Nkunku. Yeah, Nkunku isn't of the level, I think, of like a Leao in terms of dribbling. He can do it because he was a winger originally, but he's now more of a focal point. But he's good with his movement, you know, and get him in the box, he can finish. But what I'm trying to get at is Sterling's good and he can do that, and that's cool. But if you had a Leao with a Sterling who can both stretch teams, who can both run with their speed, and one of them predominantly is more of a dribbler. The other one can do it if you give him the ball, but he's better attacking the box. You know, you'll see more from it. And Pulisic should be doing it, but we don't see enough of it. Maybe we need to give Pulisic a run of games. Maybe it's his time to show us that with him and Sterling or Aubameyang, which we've not seen yet, only until yesterday, which looked okay to a degree. I'll be honest with you. You know, maybe he deserves the chance to maybe do that, but we haven't got that. And that's one of the key things that we miss in our forward line, because Havertz can't dribble. Mount can't dribble. These are players that want to run into pockets of spaces, you know, that are created for them and be effective, or, you know, or run from deep into pockets or whatever. Them players need creative players around them to then be effective, I feel, in my eyes. They're not the players you give the ball to and go, right, Eden Hazard moment, get the ball, take on 2-3 players, and then 1-2, and do you know what I mean? Like, they're not that, and that's why sometimes I feel that maybe a Kai Havertz just doesn't work, because we maybe missing.
100%, and like that's why for me, it's not to disregard these players and say that Mount, Havertz, they haven't got attributes that can work towards having a very good attack. Like, again, it may not be the most sexiest thing on the eye, but like having the IQ to understand when to run in behind and hurt teams with your movement in behind it's an important attribute to have. Like, again, Mount isn't the fastest, but we've seen him against AC Milan when he ran in behind Tomori, who we know is fast. but his timing of the run to get on the end of Reece James's pass created the penalty, also got the red card, and effectively won us that game. And like we even saw it a couple of times against Brentford as well. So like it's not to say that these players haven't got attributes that help, but for me, looking at attacking players, there's three main attributes that you need to have, or there's three main attributes that elevate you to the world class or elite level that are like pertinent for top players. I mean, what define you as top players, and the first one is creativity, which I mentioned earlier, and that's gonna be creativity through passing, through dictating the play. Like think of like someone like De Bruyne who just hurts you and it's just a menace of his passing it behind, like that kind of a creativity.
Yeah, that's different.
Then obviously you have dribbling that we,
isn't it?
Yeah,
that's a different creativity. That's like a Fabregas sort of thing, isn't it? But yeah.
Yeah, and Fabregas is an example of that. Of course, in his Arsenal days as an attacking midfielder, but even for us as like a deep line playmaker, like again, that's something that we don't have even from midfield, let alone. But I'm just talking even just about the attack. But again, creativity, we don't necessarily have it. Our only natural creative player is Ziyech. We divide a lot of opinion at the club, but I think for him, his creativity naturally comes from just crossing and like sort of like coming in that inside channel and crossing the ball, and obviously playing with like sort of these two Roman 10s behind the striker. We don't really have a system that suits him, and of course, I'm not gonna make any excuses for him as a player because he's not performed to the level that I wanted him to perform at, because I actually have big expectations for him. But yeah, we don't have that natural creativity. Obviously, dribbling we've spoken about before. We don't have like an explosive 1v1 guy like a Leao, or even Eden Hazard. As he got older, he was less explosive but just more technical, where he could attract two or three players and then beat them in tight spaces. We don't have that. And then of course the other thing that I mentioned, which is the other important thing, the three most important things in terms of being a top attacking player, is being a clinical finisher. And of course, you mentioned Sterling has put up big numbers for England and obviously Man City especially, but we know he's not clinical. Like we all see the game with our eyes and we know that he takes quite a few chances to score. And again, obviously he had a chance yesterday, and again, down to his technique and not being able to have a great first or second touch, he wasn't able to get the shot off. So again, with all of these things, it's clear that we don't have certain attributes that can allow us to be consistent at the top level. Now, in terms of like how we play, because obviously you mentioned before, are all of these players bad or is it down to the system? Of course, a lot of it is down to the system. Again, I do think a lot of these players, and we can obviously have our own story about, why Kai Havertz hasn't worked here, why Pulisic hasn't worked here, Ziyech, etc., etc. And I think we certainly will have to get into Kai Havertz today. But in terms of how we play, we are naturally a possession-based side. We are a controlling possession-based side. And I think people need to understand that, because they look at Jorginho and they say, oh, why doesn't he do this? Why doesn't he do that? He's not playing certain passes in behind. He's not doing enough. Like for me, watching the game, understanding who Chelsea are as a team, I thought Jorginho had a good game yesterday. Like I think he had a couple shaky moments early defensively, but in terms of on the ball, especially once Kovacic came on, he had a natural partner with him in the midfield. And they were able to control large portions of the game, not fully, because we still considered a lot of chances in the counterattacks on long balls and set pieces. But in terms of like being able to knit plays together, have long periods of possession in their half, because I think you brought up this stat earlier about like possession and whatnot. Like early on, we were getting dominated for possession, but it wasn't only until Kovacic came on that him and Jorginho were able to form that partnership in the midfield and combine with their passes to sort of alleviate the pressure that was on us and allow us to play through the back and then control the midfield. But obviously, having said that, because we're such a possession-based side, naturally under Tuchel, we were always about going from left to right slowly. And it wasn't players like being dynamic or going at players 1v1 or like breaking the lines of passing. We just don't have that. And again, you bring up Kovacic. Kovacic, we know, is a ball-carrying player. He's blessed with very good technique for sure. But he's not naturally like a Fabregas or Gundogan or De Bruyne who will play the passes in between the lines. And the thing is, he's been trying to do it. I think we noticed that. And I think he's noticing himself that he needs to improve at that. And that's why he's been trying to do it more. But obviously, we've seen in games like yesterday where a lot of those passes are overhit. Remember, Mount made a really good run in the second half and he's overhit the pass to him in behind. Whereas if that's like I've seen Rodri do it 1,000 times where he finds Cancelo or Walker overlapping and they're able to then get in that position, cut it back, and then Sterling gets to tap in. So again, we lack that that ability from midfield to obviously break the lines and be consistent with top level passes.
Yeah, no, there's and listen, these are things that I think I knew when we were going into this season that we were going to miss. I knew creativity would be a massive issue. When people saw that Sterling come in, I was happy that he came in because to be honest, I do think that he has probably our best out of like forward and wingers. He's probably our best in terms of like, being able to do the overall, in terms of this system and what we require and stuff. But he's not enough. And Mason Mount's good around it with him. I don't have an issue with that. But it's who else with him, along with Aubameyang's here for now. But Nkunku could be coming in, which could be nice. Imagine having Nkunku, Leao, and Blimmin Sterling as your front three. It's a different.
Yeah, that is the front three that I want for next season.
Exactly. Yeah, and for me, that's a completely different style and type of Chelsea, because you have the dribbler, the creator. You have the other one that can do the dribbling in Sterling, but also contribute to goals and arrive late. But like we saw at Man City, he was always good at arriving in the box, wasn't he? From deep and getting goals, and that's how he scores goals. Sterling. That's the way it works, and that's a good thing to have. And Nkunku is a finisher, versatile, can drop deep, can come off the wing, score goals for fun. I like Nkunku. I have liked Nkunku for a while. Some people might say Bundesliga's tax question marks over him because of Kai Havertz and Timo Werner. Granted, we'll have to wait and see with that. But mainly for me, Leao, or that type of profile player, is real key for me. Someone that can be not an Eden Hazard, but be that type of profile, if that makes sense, and be consistent as well. And when I watch Leao, I think he has all the ability to come to this league and really cause havoc here, to be honest.
Like, he's direct. Like, he doesn't need much help from the team or the system to just go and create. And again, that's just to wrap up my point from earlier about why, like, the fact that we're a possession-based side. It has its pros and its cons, but because we're a possession-based side, and that's not going to change, at least maybe until Potter gets gets more into this team, gets his ideas across further. But because we're a possession-based side, we need natural, decisive players in the final third who are able to create from a static start. Because when you look at Liverpool, they're not a possession-based side. They've kind of adapted a bit to control games a bit more, but naturally their midfield, whether it's Thiago, Henderson, or Fabinho, they play very direct into their forwards and they get the ball to them early. But with us, we're a bit more possession-based, a bit more controlling-based, so naturally our attacking players and also our wing-backs get the ball from a static start. And it's hard to create from a static start, like a static position, unless you have top quality ability. And obviously in Eden Hazard in the past, we had that. Even in Willian, who again, funnily enough, divided the fan base a lot. One thing that he was very good at, and people should know this from his time playing as a right winger, was he would just get the ball, stop, freeze his fullback, and just accelerate past him. And again, that's something that to be honest, I even took for granted a lot, because right now we don't have anybody who's even doing that. When we're trying to be a control-based side, we certainly need those decisive players in the final third, and that's where it comes to guys like Havertz, even Mount to a degree, Pulisic, Sterling now. They just haven't got that X factor, that top-level ability to create from off their own back.
Even when we're not playing well, like we did against Villa and whatever, having that player that just steps up and is the difference. Like Mount does it on the odd occasion, doesn't he? He steps up when he can and gets us points and whatever. We're relying on Kepa at the moment to keep us in games. Do you know what I mean? Like we haven't got that person that steps up like Hazard done so many times and just 1-0, we win.
And again, Jim, I have to say, and this is such a key point, because again, a lot of these games are not playing great, so then we need a moment of magic to open the game up, and we don't have that. And again, you look at, and this is why I've not been impressed by how we've been under Potter. Again, results have been great. Like, even with the draw today, cool. I think we won 4 out of 6 games. Fair enough. I'm pretty happy with that. But if you look at a lot of these games, in terms of the opening goal that gets us on our way, against Aston Villa, so the last game, right? It was a mistake from Mings, like just a random mistake from Mings, like a 1 in a million.
Yeah.
And then obviously Mount finishes it off well, but that just comes from a mistake. Then a game before that we were ahead was AC Milan away. Again, that does come from a bit of good quality from Reece James, the ball in behind to Mount, but it still is a mistake from Tomori that gives us that goal.
Yeah.
Then a game before that was a set piece, and again those set pieces came from just mistakes from Milan. Now again, it was, I guess you could say, it was good high pressing, so of course Potter will be happy with that kind of forced some of those errors from Benassi and other players from Milan's defense. But still, it's not individual brilliance. These are just moments of either set pieces or mistakes or whatnot that's allowing us to get these opening goals in games. And again, until you have players who are going to just have the ability to create openings for themselves and win you games and score these opening goals in games, we're going to have these same struggles over the season, which is
Yeah,
why I said from the beginning it's going to be a tough season.
but this is why it doesn't surprise me, and this is why I say to people, when we will go through seasons being inconsistent, where do we start looking? And where we start looking is understanding that the current crop of players that we have, the performances that they've shown us in the past seasons, and what's required to make it that better, to be more consistent. What is it that we need to kick on, close the gap to the top, and become the dominant again, to be the Chelsea of old, and start winning Premier Leagues again and stuff. That is the real, the line that I'm waiting to kind of see. And maybe we just need another summer window. But Leao wouldn't be enough, is what Shaq's saying. We need a midfield. That's true as well. I agree with all that. That's something we have to sort out. Midfield is, I keep banging on about the midfield, but we'll save it because I've got some things to go through. But 45 minutes in, and we ain't even got into everything yet as well. Lots of talking, which is fine. But over it's over 200 people here right now. So big up to every single one of you guys that are tuned in right now. Make sure that we're hitting the likes. I know that we ain't got enough likes right now. So let's try and get these likes up, guys, both on Chelsea Fan TV and GNA TV. Let's get this over 100 likes on both of these streams at the moment, guys. I'm going to fly through some quick tabs quickly. Obviously, we've got one here from CFC Daily that says the last 10 Premier League games on the midweek. We've won 2, but then we've only lost 2, and we've drawn 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. So we've drawn 6, 1, 2, lost 2. So midweek games at the moment, it's not really a thing for Chelsea. I think Winter Surfer come out with something quite interesting. He said, well, yeah, we ain't winning all of these games. There's a lot of draws in there, but we've only lost 2 at the same time. So it's not like we're losing these games. True, in the way of looking at it, but still not that impressive.
It's mid-table form. It's mid-table form, if we're honest.
It is. It's not good. Then we go on to obviously Graham Potter's form, and obviously we've got a comparison here quickly. In the first 7 games of Potter to Tuchel is exactly the same. It's 2 draws and then a load of wins in between in that as well. So again, I don't like doing this thing of comparing both managers. I think we shouldn't do that because they're completely different in their own ways. One, in Graham Potter, we don't know what to expect because he's never been here before, and it's expectations. There is no real expectation of what we're going to get from him. It's just waiting to see how good he actually is, if he is that good. And Thomas Tuchel, when he came to Chelsea, was a world-class manager. He was already on the pedestal, and because of what he'd done in the past and whatever. And it was about how consistent he could be with this club and if he'd be backed and things like that. So I think it is a lot of differences between both the managers, which we shouldn't, as a fan base, be doing so early and comparing. We got a habit of doing that. But we move on back to the game. I want to talk about my man of the match, and I don't know who forwards is, but my man of the match with this guy here. He's got a crazy stat at the moment forward, where every time he's played, he hasn't lost 1 game. He's played 30 games for Chelsea in his career, Chalobah, and he's not lost any. It's not 1 game he's lost. So whether it's a good luck charm or what, Trevor Chalobah is very, for me, he's improving slowly and surely. And people don't like, he doesn't get talked about enough. I know some people were critical of him for his decision making last season, and that caused free kicks in dangerous areas and potential penalties and things like that. But the one thing I would say about Trevor Chalobah is that let's really understand where he came from and where he turned out, because he came out of the blue last season. Let's be serious. Walked into the team, started off very well, then had a dip in form, which I agree he did to a degree. Got benched, and then when was called upon, returned and actually dropped some really good performances. Wesley Fofana gets injured, he gets his opportunity again since Wesley Fofana's been injured. And for me, I think he's been, I really think he's been really good. I think he's been unbelievable so far. I think he's been that good, Trevor Chalobah. And I think we need to understand that he's still very young. He's still very raw. He's going to have these moments. But to be playing next to a Thiago Silva and a Kalidou Koulibaly and that experience in itself for a player like him and learning from them, it's only a real benefit for not only him, but for us as Chelsea. Because, I'm seeing it in his performances, his decision-making, his understanding of where to position himself, when to commit, where to stand. I thought he was very good yesterday. I know people will say Kepa was man of the match. Not for me, personally, and we're going to talk about Kepa after. But he was my man of the match because he stood out. He really got stuck in, and I thought he was going to struggle from a physical element up against Tony and the other guy, Mbeumo, is it? I can't remember his name, Mbeumo. But
Yeah. I mean,
he held.
pronunciation wasn't right, but yeah, I think they know who you're talking about.
Yeah. But for me, he held his own forward, and I just think that he gets a lot of a lot of people don't believe in him, and I just don't get it to a degree. I think he's done very well up to this point. What about for you?
Yeah, I mean, I echo a lot of your thoughts. I thought, again, first of all, like his come up to being in the Chelsea, to being a Chelsea player and pretty much a first team player now, or at least around the squad, it's phenomenal because last season he was meant to go out on loan again. There were a couple of clubs, some again back in the French league, where obviously he's played before, and also in the Liga that were sort of debating whether they're going to play him in defence or midfield, and that was sort of like the hold up, whether they were going to sign him or not. And obviously at the time we were linked heavily with Kunde. That one didn't go over the line, and I think Chalobah had impressed well in pre-season. He then got his shot in the Super Cup against Villarreal, performed very well. And again, obviously started the season off with a very fantastic performance against Palace, and he topped off with a beautiful goal. And he never really looked back since then, and he performed well. Again, obviously kept up this incredible streak of not losing when he started the game for us. Of course, had some dips in form, and again, Tuchel was quite harsh in the media, saying that quite harsh and just calling it out that he was in bad form. When for me, it wasn't really that bad. Like it was a couple of games where he had some iffy
Yeah,
moments, which can happen with a young player. Like it's normal. But at the same time, if let's say if he was Kunde and that was Kunde putting in those performances, I don't think people would really read that much into it, if I'm completely honest. I thought, yeah, there were some rash moments, some moments where you look at him and you think some of the decision making isn't the best, but I think that's normal for a young player. They're not going to be the end product. They're not going to be like polished as a defender straight away. I think
yeah.
only experience can give you that. And like, I mean, you look at somebody as polished as Thiago Silva alongside him, like like that only experience allows you to have that level of composure. And I think that will come. But
Mm.
yeah, again, I thought against Tony and Mbeumo, like that's a tough assignment for any defender in the league. And I thought he looked good. I thought he fought well in some of the duels against them. I think on the ball again, I think he's very good on the ball, very underrated on the ball. I do think he has obviously some areas to improve, of course. I think in the air, I think there's times where he kind of misreads the flight of certain balls and he maybe then heads it when it's a bit too low when he should really be trying to volley the ball away or maybe even take a touch. Um, a couple of times from crosses, he kind of comes underneath the ball and he's allowed free headers. I remember I think yesterday there was one free header in the first half where somebody got behind him to head it. There was also Giroud's chance against AC Milan. I think this was just after the 1-0 and the penalty. Giroud has a free header that was just behind him, and again that was Chalobah leaving his man, created a back post misjudging the flight of the cross. So I think certainly defending open play crosses he needs to improve, but again that will come with time. I think right now with Fofana's injury, I'm happy to see him start. I think he gives us good balance in that back line with his youth, his athleticism, his ability on the ball to play out from the back. I think it's all very underrated, and I don't think he has the greatest PR, which is why maybe people and fans don't really talk about him in the same light as other young English players. But I think we've got a really good player on our hands, and somebody that for sure you need to have in a squad if you want to compete on all fronts.
No, I agree. I agree, mate. I think he's he's one for the future, and I want to keep players like Trevor Chalobah. Rather than Chelsea always go out and buy the next big thing, why not just look at what close to home? This is something that we all scream about, and yeah, I just think he's he just needs the time, and he deserves to be in the team for me at the moment. I think he's been very, very, very good up to this point. I hope it continues, to be honest, as well. Moving away from Trevor Chalobah, we are going to go and talk a little bit about Kepa because he is in form and he's keeping Mendy on the bench as well, which is fine. It is what it is, and I don't really blame it. I mean, Kepa has conceded 0 goals from 6.9 expected goals in his last 5 games for Chelsea. There's that. There's also another one here from Chelsea database on Kepa. Let's share some cut tabs here. So we've got this one here, which no, that's Kai Havertz, Jim. We're not talking about Kai Havertz yet. Let's save that one.
Yeah.
Saving the best for last, you know what I mean? Anyway, yeah, and then we get on to his performances overall. Best performing goalkeeper so far, top 5 leagues, is Kepa at the moment, supposedly. Again, it's still early doors. And when I keep talking about Kepa himself, he has... I don't... With Kepa, it's a thing of like, he's in good form at the moment. I saw the same thing with Mendy under Tuchel. And now he's starting to show us that he can now be slowly consistent. Now, it's about him now being consistent in the long term of games. The only thing I will say between Mendy and Kepa, and I've said it already, is that I've seen Mendy reach a level that I haven't seen Kepa reach it yet. Maybe Kepa will reach that level of goalkeeping, but it's still early doors. And at the moment, he's done nothing wrong. So at the end of the day, there's no reason for him to be dropped. Why he wasn't my man of the match yesterday is I'm going to show you guys why. And it's not anything against him because he was there. But if you watch some of these saves, so that one there, I feel Mendy would have saved. I'll be honest with you, forward. I think Mendy would have saved that as well. Straight at him, high up, he would put that over the bar, right? I expect him to make that save. There's nothing too hard about that. This one was the best of them all. In terms of quick reaction, winning, and saving it from point blank, I would say that maybe Mendy may let that go past him. But, that is a great save from Kepa. Even then, it's straight at him. But this one's straight at him for me. So, again, quite an easy save, right? And this one, I would say he's good because he stays on his feet and he kind of forces him wide. But when you look at his overall performance compared to where it was against Villa, I wouldn't say it was at that level. He was called upon in terms of like making an importance that Tony save, which I would say was with the best of the bunch. But in terms of the amount of multiple saves he made in the Villa game, which were very good saves, I wouldn't say it was like a man of the match performance compared to someone like Trevor Chalobah, who I just thought stood out a bit more for me. Now, not to knock Kepa, I'm just saying a lot of them saves that he made yesterday, I expect him to make. There was only one that maybe, Mendy would have let past him. But yeah, what do you think about Kepa's performance yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, in short, I thought his performance was really good. I thought he was one of our better performers. He obviously got given man of the match by the team on Amazon Prime. I think, ironically, I would have actually given it to Jorginho again, which I think that maybe opinion that people don't share, but it is what it is.
I wouldn't share.
Obviously, yeah. I mean, it's fair enough. I mean, I'm not a biggest fan of Jorginho, and
Yeah.
again, people don't like what he does for the team. But in terms of being a controlled, like a possession-based side, I thought he actually done well. He actually played some good balls in between the lines and even in behind. And again, we didn't execute in the final third. But obviously on Kepa, listen, this is a guy that many people in the fan base have been very critical of. Myself at the top of that list for sure. But listen, I'm happy for the guy that he's actually performing now in the team. And again, I was very hesitant to say that, oh, he's back, he's doing this, he's that after a couple of games, because I thought even against Salzburg, again, when I think that was Potter's first game. So this is obviously when Mendy was still injured. I thought he could have done better with the goal in that game, personally for me. So I was hesitant to say that, oh, he deserves to be in the team, he deserves to show in the games. I did want Mendy back once he was fully fit, but Potter persisted with him, and I thought, fair enough. Let's see how he does, because he hasn't made any glaring mistakes or anything. And obviously against Aston Villa, he was top quality. Like, that was a top quality performance, man. You have to give credit to him for that. And yesterday again, didn't make any mistakes. Was very good at his saves. I thought the last save, when he kind of comes out close to the ankle well, but doesn't overly commit, so that Tony doesn't have the option of trying to buy a penalty off of him or anything like that. I thought that was really good goalkeeping. And again, it's not to say that, oh, Mendy couldn't do this, because we all saw Mendy last season have a man of the match display at Brentford, which is probably one of the best goalkeeping performances we've seen for Chelsea over the last 2, 3, 4 years. But for right now, Kepa is in form. Of course, there's going to be a slight bias to him within the club because he's on so much money. He was such a big investment, and obviously Mendy currently hasn't signed the new contract. And I know that they are wanting to negotiate that. And I think part of playing Kepa and allowing Kepa to sort of regain number one spot is a bit of a negotiation strategy from the club, which I'm sure obviously Potter's in with as well, because now Mendy can see his value is obviously there for the team because he's done more for us in the Chelsea shirt than Kepa. Let's not make no mistake about that. But he's obviously wanting Kepa money, and I think the club want to also reduce Kepa's wages. But if they're showing that Kepa can perform and the club doesn't necessarily need Mendy like Mendy thinks they need him, then it kind of reduces Mendy's bargaining power, let's say. So, but obviously for now, things on the pitch, I'm happy for Kepa. He's proving me wrong, but he's not proved any of us wrong that said he couldn't be a top goalkeeper for Chelsea, because you need to do more than just a couple of games. It needs to be more than that. And obviously for the big games coming up against United, Arsenal, you need to see him be top again. Like, you have to be. It can't just be a case of a couple of decent games and then you go and make another mistake. That can't happen. So hopefully he does, and hopefully he goes to show why he was bought for 72 million, because up till now we hadn't really seen it. So hopefully this is the start of a new Kepa.
I still need to do ratings, but obviously we need to talk about Kai Havertz. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly read this up, and then we're going to go to the player ratings because we've been an hour in already, and then we'll get to Kai Havertz's. We'll talk about Kai Havertz when we do the ratings properly. But in terms of Kai Havertz, obviously yesterday's performance was not impressive. Obviously he lost the most duels, 12 out of any player last night. 9 out of 11 ground duels he lost, and he lost 3 out of 4 aerial duels, which is very weird in terms of for him. I would say, to be honest, in terms of him, but. We're going to get to him and we're going to talk more about him in a second. But the reason I'm doing that is because we do need to speed it up and get on to the ratings as well. So we will get to Kai Havertz, guys. All right. I know there's people saying, "Oh, I'm getting my Kai Havertz pack ready in the chat." Yeah, they want to get him. You know what I mean? So we'll get to Kai Havertz. We're going to fly through it. I'm going to be quick with my ratings anyway. You guys in the chat get involved as well. For me, Kepa, again, decent performance, stepped up. Another clean sheet for him. For me, he was probably an 8.5 for me. What about you, Forward?
I would have given him an 8, but 8.5 is fair. I think also one other thing that I will praise him on is not just his distribution, because I think distribution-wise, him and Mendy are quite close, but I think he's just better on the ball, like in terms of taking a touch, being able to find short passes, and just not being as gangly on the ball. Because again, he's I think a few inches shorter than Mendy. I think that really helped with our build-up there in terms of really gaining the midfield control battle. Once Kovacic came on, but yeah, 8.5 is fair for him.
Yeah, I just want to say something to Lewis quickly because you can see my Kai Havertz. It's probably not the best time to have a Kai Havertz scarf behind you, is it, right now? But
yeah, I want to cover that one up, mate.
Listen, I'm not like you, mate. I ain't got an agenda for players. Yeah, if a player isn't playing well, I'll come out and say it. I've always been that kind of player, mate. You're not like you who defends players even when they're shit. So yeah, let's just
Christensen.
You know what I mean? Like, your Christensen bullshit. The guy was fucking shit. At least I can sit here and admit if a player's not playing well. You know what I mean? So it is what it is. Yeah, right. We move on. Kepa is an 8.5 for me. We move on to the back. Kalidou Koulibaly got mixed sort of opinions on Twitter from what I've seen. Some people thought he was really bad or not great, and some of us thought he was pretty decent. I'm in between of it. I actually think he was okay. I didn't think he done much wrong. Apparently, he's the most progressive passer of defender in the Premier League this season so far as well. I like Koulibaly. I don't get why people are so. I know he has that rash moment in him where he just, he just gets a yellow card because he does something stupid. I get that. But yesterday, I think he got done once, which could have put us in trouble. I think Chalobah actually deflected that, sort of knocked it away. But overall, I thought Koulibaly was okay. For me, I'd probably say a 7, maybe a 7.5, but probably a 7 for him. What are you saying, Forward?
For me, I thought Koulibaly had a really good game, just with some bad moments in it. I think that's just how I'd sum up a lot of his Chelsea career right now. I feel like he's still adjusting to the league, the pace of the league, the intensity of the league, the fact that you have to do a lot more aerial duels here. But again, I'm happy that you brought up the stat about his progressive passing. I feel like he is so underrated on the ball, bro. Like, not just the fact that he will see the passes and he'll play it, but the weight of his passes, the intention behind his passes. Like, he's always trying to play it in front of players so that they can sort of run onto the ball. And I think it's such an underrated aspect of his game. And I think ever since his debut, when I think he was voted maybe man of the match against Tottenham, and I think Carragher in the post match said that he's not great on the ball because he looks a certain way on the ball, because obviously he's 6'3" or 4, a bit like, I don't know how you'd say it. Again, yeah, he's just not the most. He doesn't look like, okay. So similar with Zuma, right? Zuma was not the best on the ball, and obviously he looked a bit clumsy on it at times, but I thought he was okay on the ball. But Koulibaly, while he maybe looks a little bit clumsy on the ball at times, because he's such a big, obviously, athlete of a guy, right? But he's so good on the ball, very underrated. His passing with both feet. I think he's been a very good signing for us so far. Still want to see him reach even higher levels because he has that in him. But yeah, I think for yesterday, I'd probably give him a 7.5. I thought he was really good. Made some really good blocks in the first half as well. So yeah, I think 7.5 is fair for him.
Fair enough. My man of the match, Trevor Chalobah. I'm going to be honest. I'll go with a strong 9. I wouldn't say 9.5, but I'll go with a strong 9. Just thought he stepped up. I thought it was a big test for him. I even said before the game on Con Space. Actually, it was on Con Space. I said, I feel that this is a big challenge for Chalobah in terms of the opposition and the physicality side of it. And I thought he passed it with flying colours for me. Comfortable on the ball, read the game well, a couple of important blocks, decision making was good. Yeah, he's growing for me. A 9 for me. What are you saying, Ford?
I probably have to go an 8 if I'm honest. Again, I thought just like you said, he was really good, had some really good moments, but there were a couple of errors again, like the one that I mentioned with being caught under the ball for one of the crosses in the first half. I thought even Rico Henry's chance in the second half, when it comes from a long ball that he, I think, challenged with, I believe it was in Buemo, and then he ends up on the floor. Now, again, you can get injured in football. I'm not going to criticize you for that, but as a centre back, there's times when you need to be stronger and you can't allow yourself to be muscled off the ball and then end up on the floor, because him being on the floor kind of left us out of position and then they get a shot on and goal from that. So I think he needs to improve in that area, because that's something that I was very critical of Christensen for a long time. But again, small details aside, I still think he's been a very good player for us. And I think somebody that I'm happy to see start consistently. So yeah, for me an 8, but I'm still very happy with his progression in the Chelsea shirt.
Do you know what I mean? That just makes you have it to do with having consistency like AC ever had. Oh, as if he had consistency of being sick, yeah, and having the shits. Yeah, like Lee Both said there. Lewis, you don't that's cap. And then I said Lewis equals cap. Anyway, yeah, Lewis cracks me up, he does. Oh man, my boy. Let's go on to Aspilicueta. Again, someone that gets a lot of criticism on a decline. I still feel he is. I don't think he should be playing every game. I think rotation's right for him. Again, did he do much wrong yesterday? Was he great? No. I do feel that he slows the game down with his passing. Some of his passing was really poor in the first half. I'd probably say a 7, maybe 6.5, to be honest. I wasn't hugely impressed with him, but at the same time, he didn't do much wrong, if that makes sense. He had some good moments on defending, but other than that, yeah, probably a 7 for me on him.
Yeah, I think 7's fair. I'd agree with that as well. I mean, against Wolves the other day, like, he was absolutely amazing, and I thought, like, wow, I don't think he can keep that up, and obviously he was true to that, but still, I don't think he was a letdown for the team, and yeah, I think a 7's fair.
Yeah, fair enough, mate. Fair enough. What about Ruben Loftus-Cheek? Because he was asked to play as a wing-back, supposedly, not as a central midfielder, where he has been very effective. I'd say he's been our most consistent in midfield out of all of them at the moment this season. Asked to play out there. I do think it limits him. At the same time, he does a job, and he done a job again yesterday for me. Again, I don't blame him because he's in a position he shouldn't be in. But, in terms of like releasing the ball a bit quicker, maybe putting the ball in a lot earlier, taking a player on and maybe like doing that sort of Liao, which he isn't in his game. But I don't know. I find it hard to rate Ruben in this game because I just don't feel that it's fair in terms of where he was being asked to play again. But he wasn't bad, but he wasn't exactly great. So for me, I'd probably say probably a 7, 6.5, 7. What about you?
I'll probably lean more to a 6.5. Again, I'm a big fan of Ruben Loftus-Cheek. I've been, again, really happy with his comeback, just in being in the Chelsea shirt, let alone what he's doing now, which is probably, for me, been our best midfielder so far this season. Obviously, today, again, at wing-back, yeah, you just see the level between what he does out there compared to Reece James normally there. So it's just, again, it's unfair on him to judge him on that, but again, that is who he's replacing out there. So yep, had some tough moments defensively. Again, you can see the inexperience playing in that position. So I'd only give him a 6.5. But again, you see sometimes driving forward with the ball offensively, like that's what you want to see him doing, man, and then that's what you want to see him doing like in a number 8 position. And again, hopefully, as time goes on the Potter, we find a formation that suits a lot of these kind of players like him, Mason Mount. I think I'd love to see them as 8s, but yeah, for yesterday, 6.5.
Fair enough. What about Cucurella? I actually think he's been poor the last 2 games. I mean, he was really bad against Villa. It was one of the worst performances I've ever seen of a player, to be honest. I was there. I was at the game. It was not good to watch. He just did. And again, I just feel that, again, he was playing in a position that he just didn't look comfortable with. Just not, he didn't look like he really understood what he was, where he was meant to be. Yesterday, it wasn't as bad as Villa. Again, I just expect more from him going forward, though. And I feel sometimes like he's creating, like, I feel like he could be good for us in terms of moving the ball quickly forward. Sometimes he's a bit reserved, and sometimes his passing can be a little bit wayward. And yesterday I felt that a little bit with him. Sometimes got caught out of position and left Koulibaly exposed. I felt getting some parts of the game, but I don't know. I wasn't overly impressed with him. I'll probably give him a 6 on what I'd say, mate. What about you?
I mean, we did keep a clean sheet, right? So it'd be hard to give him too low of a rating, but I was looking at maybe like 4.5, maybe a 5 if I'm being generous. Yeah, not good at all again today. And again, this is a player that I do like a lot, but I'm going to be honest and tell you what players I do like and I do have high hopes for at the club, and he certainly is one of them. But again, not great. Certain situations where he's in the final third, where this is a position that you are comfortable with, and I would expect more end product from you. Again, this is an area of the game where I'm very critical of a Ben Chilwell, for example, but Cucurella hasn't really done that for us yet in the final third, and I'm still expecting a lot more. Again, he's good at progressing the ball forward through the lines a bit quicker, more technically secure than Ben Chilwell, but the last 2 games have just not been good enough. So, yeah, for me, I'm gonna have to just about give him a 5.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay, let's move from Cucurella. Let's quickly fly through them. If I ain't going to rate Conor Gallagher because he was on for 15 minutes, and for me, I think he just struggled overall in that. So I'm not even going to bother.
Well, Potter said he was ill, and I guess it makes sense. Like he was feeling kind of like he was going to vomit on the pitch. So yeah, I think that makes sense of what we saw out there.
We'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Yeah, we'll give him the benefit of the doubt this game, shall we? It's probably fair enough. What about Jorginho? Because again, he's another player that divides opinion. I thought I just know, you know what it is with Jorginho? I just know what we get from him. I just don't expect any more from him. I just know. It is what it is. Is how I feel when I see Jorginho. And I know you said he was man of the match and whatever you said, but I just felt in the first half, there was just a number of times where, again, he was one of the further forward with the ball, and he just doesn't release the ball quick enough. He always goes for the easy pass sideways, and just completely slows us down. And he broke up play kind of well. He done all right in terms of getting stuck in against a physical team. I get that, but I just not overly I don't feel overly confident when he's in the team. I'll be honest with you. I never have done, to be honest. But it wasn't a bad game yesterday for him, but it wasn't again the greatest game for him. So it will just sit in the middle for me with probably a 6 or a 5.5 actually. No, 6. I'll give him a 6. 6 for me.
I think in general, like how you assess Jorginho as a player, I agree for sure. I don't think he's been that great this season. Of course, he's not a certain type of DM in terms of being athletic or being a great destroyer of play. But again, while he's good at intercepting the ball, and we saw that a bit yesterday, I think in general, like his lack of athleticism does cost us in the midfield. But this is going to be funny. But I thought he was our man of the match. If I'm honest, I thought he was our best player that started the game. I would have given him an 8. I would say an 8, like maybe like a joint rating with Chalobah and Kepa, but I would have nodded him man of the match. And I'll tell you why. Like, so obviously once Kovacic came onto the pitch, like we were able to gain more control of the midfield, and a lot of that came from Jorginho. Again, being able to beat their press the first and second time was what forced them back to them being the mid blocks rather than pressing us high up the pitch. And I thought Jorginho was key.
Are you still there, Ford? I think you might have cut off. I think your connection may have disagreed with what you were saying, mate.
Yeah, I think I cut off for like a little bit there. What was the last thing that you heard?
He said Jorginho was key.
He was key. I thought he was key in breaking their press, because again, first 15 minutes when Gallagher was on the pitch, like we struggled to get through their press. But once Kovacic came on and Jorginho had somebody to combine with in the midfield, he was key in allowing us to be able to beat that pressure, get up the pitch. Again, knit play together. And I thought even in the final third, while he's not great at this, I thought he played a lot of passes forward. And I think people have to maybe go back and watch it, but some really good passes forward to Kai Havertz in areas, Mason Mount in certain areas. So I thought he had a good game. Again, it's about what you judge Jorginho on. I'm judging Jorginho on what he normally does. And for what he does and what he brings to this team, I thought he had a very good game. I'm not going to expect him to do Cesc Fabregas stuff and start whipping out incredible passes. So it's not. But for what he does, I thought he had a good game. So I'll give him credit for that.
It's funny because I just laugh at the chat. The chat cracks me out with some of the stuff I read.
It's funny because normally I'm on the side of saying Jorginho is not this, he's not that. But I thought yesterday, and again, this is the beauty of football. We all have our opinions. But I thought yesterday, for what he does, I thought he did it very well.
Fair enough. Let's move. Kovacic. Again, I'll be quick with him. I thought he brought balance to the game. Again, just felt like he let us down a bit with his final pass. But again, he was the only one being, for me, the most progressive with the ball forward, trying to make look up and make balls over the top and play people in and stuff, like, fine, at least he's trying to do it. For me, it was probably a 7.5 for me, Kovacic, just there, because at least he, for me, at least he came on and had a bit about him, I would say. But yeah, what would you say?
Yeah, I'd give him a 7. I find you give him a 7.5, but you'd give Jorginho a 5. That's interesting. It's interesting.
I just think Jorginho. Maybe it is what you said. Maybe I expect him to do things that he's not meant to do. He can't do. If that makes sense. But I should really understand what he is, which is just someone that controls games, and that's it. But I don't want someone that controls games when we're trying to win games. I want someone that's going to take risks. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
With the balls, rather than just. I don't mind a player that controls the game and comes on when we're winning 2-0. This is why I say about him staying next season and being rotation, because I don't want a player in my team that control's good. Don't get me wrong, but it's what you do with the ball, right? It's going backwards and sideways and doing short passes is all nice and is okay, but it's how effective can you be with the ball, especially when you're a midfielder. And that's why I always look for at least a midfielder, and I'm one of the midfielders to be able to be effective consistently and actually be a bit of a creator. We haven't got that, and even Kovacic, to a degree, he tries. He breaks the lines, but his final third ball is just not that. So, I mean, yeah, go on. What was you going to say about Kovacic? Yeah.
But everything that you said there is fair. And again, I think yesterday, Jorginho did do a bit more of that in terms of some passes between the lines and into the final third. But again, that's fair enough. In terms of Kovacic, again, he is somebody that's trying to do more of that. I think he himself is recognizing in his game that he needs to do more of breaking the lines and be more effective with his passes. Because again, you look at some of our rivals, they have Thiago, like Liverpool with Thiago, amazing at breaking the lines, great creativity from midfield. You look at Arsenal with Odegaard, even United. And again, I hate United and hate most of their players, but look what Eriksen's brought to their midfield. Like, he's given them a lot more ability to play through the lines. I thought his performance against Arsenal for one was incredible, and we don't really have that. Again, Kovacic, like obviously I've mentioned and like you mentioned as well, he brought balance to the midfield. I thought he was one player that was looking for Broja's runs. Again, even with Lukaku last season, he was one of the few players that was looking for the striker's runs, which is good, but execution wasn't great. And obviously you want more from Kovacic in those situations, because ultimately, while he's not that player, I think we should still expect more from somebody with his ability. And again, it's come to the point of what do you expect from certain players, and then how do they actually perform in games? But yeah, I would give him a 7. Again, mainly for what he brought in terms of giving us more balance in the game and at least trying those passes. And again, we'll get onto obviously Broja later on, but yeah, some of his passes did end up leading to certain chances. So yeah, I'll give him a 7.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I'm just saying, it just caught my eye. I don't know how true it was. It's just come out like 20 minutes ago, away from football. Apparently, Liz Truss has resigned already. Is that true? That's a bit mad, isn't it? If that's true. I don't know how true that is. I'm just trying to see if it's Liz Truss has resigned. The letter says what? I don't know what's going on. Anyway, that's another story.
Maybe King Charles is moving crazy, but who knows?
Yeah, it's only been here to live in 2 seconds. But going back to football, Mason Mount again wasn't, a great game against Villa. Wasn't as effective against Brentford, but why wasn't he as effective? I don't think, and this goes back to what I was saying about moving the ball quicker forward into him and stuff. I don't think we fed him enough with the ball. Don't think we used him well enough. We made him play more off the left in this game. And he ended up getting taken off eventually. But yeah, I mean, he didn't really get involved, did he? He's not much to get him now. I don't know whether it's because he was starved of the ball or he wasn't receiving it enough or whatever it was. But I didn't see enough of Mason Mount in that game. For me, I'd probably give him a 5.5. I don't think he was great whatsoever. But again, it's not because of his trying to work out, was it because of him or was it just because we wasn't utilising him well enough or playing or giving the ball enough to for him to then be more effective in the game? I mean, what's your thoughts, Hord?
I think it's a bit of both. I thought he was making some good runs off the ball and wasn't found on a couple of occasions. Again, one was from Kovacic, who at least saw the run but didn't execute on a couple of occasions. Didn't get into the game as much as I like in the opening half, really. But on one occasion at the end of the first half, he got into a really good area, made a really good pass into a certain somebody that we will get onto soon. But that person's touch let them down. And again, on another day, that could have been something that created either a goal for that player or a chance that comes from Mason Mount. And we'd say, oh, wow, that was amazing, like another amazing pass from Mason Mount. But today, especially for a player that has taken on the mantle of being one of our key players. I thought it's not good enough today from him. So just on the basis of what we should expect from Mason Mount, I'd give him a 5 today.
Yeah, fair enough. I think that's fair enough. You know, he was great last game round, I'll be honest with you. Now let's get on to what everyone's been waiting for, yeah, because everyone wants to talk about him. And we always seem to have this in our fan base where one player who just gets absolutely grilled for a week and then it would be someone else and it would be someone else. So let's talk about Kai Havertz, because as much as he and I like Kai Havertz, people know that I do like Kai Havertz. At the same time, 66 appearances in the Premier League with 14 goals and 6 assists is not what we should be, it's not great. I agree with that. Do I feel that him and himself and his own performances are not good enough? Yes. Yesterday he wasn't good enough for me. I look at him and I know people talk about his ability and whatever, and I look past the ability with him. I think it's at the moment for me when I look at him, I look at someone just so not here, low in confidence mentally. I don't know what it is. It's like a block of some kind. And usually with Kai Havertz, you look at last season when he weren't scoring goals, he'd always like have the determination to get involved and be, try and be effective and get himself around and, work for the team. And I don't know. Yesterday, I just felt he looked a bit dejected. Like he just didn't, and then on top of that, he's then making wrong decisions once he receives the ball, he's, not utilizing it in any way. He's just being wasteful, is what I would say, and it's not good, and he needs to. This is why I say he's going to have this season, because he will have this season. Some people will say, get rid of him now, it's not going to happen, forget it. But at the same time, only he can make things happen for himself and turn things around. When he's given the opportunities to play and Potter's given him opportunities, Pulisic's being benched consistently because of it, he needs to step up and be counted for. But however, at the same time, you look at our forward line for the last couple of games. And Aubameyang, who's been banging in goals and whatever amount here and there. It goes back to the same question I have even when we were under Thomas Tuchel. Why do our forwards struggle? Why is there Why is there no consistency in what they do? Why can't we get the best out of them? And yes, we can look at them and say it's them as well, because they're not taking their chances and being effective. But, what is it? Is there something else towards it? Is there some chemistry issues? What? I don't know. But Kai Havertz, at the end of the day, if he doesn't wake up sooner rather than later, if he doesn't start snapping into form, starts taking his chances when he is given the chances, putting the ball in the back of the net, probably want to go himself. And he'll probably end up going to someone like Bayern Munich or wherever, where they'll play him in a Thomas Müller role around a system that maybe suits him. And he'll probably end up being effective. And this whole thing about his ability will not be seen at Chelsea, but will be seen at another club. And that's probably what will happen for me. But it goes to beg the thing. At the end of the day, for me, it was poor yesterday. I'll give him probably a 2.5 at a max. I didn't rate him. I'm not going to sit here and defend him at the end of the day. And I won't defend players when they don't play well. But it's not looking good for him at the moment. And I think maybe he needs to hold bench for a little bit. Maybe that will sort, I don't know, maybe revitalise something in his game and we can start seeing a decent Kai Havertz. But at the moment, it's not looking good. So how do you feel about it, Ford?
For me, just in terms of rating the performance, right? He was a 2 out of 10 for me. Again, certain areas where he got onto the ball in key positions, and you want more from him to do something with the ball, create, or just have even like the threat that you're gonna do something with the ball, and he didn't have that at all. And it's a reoccurring theme with Havertz. We have to admit that. So yeah, 2 out of 10. Obviously, even like the chances that he could have got on the end of when Broja cut the ball back a couple of times, he's not anticipating that and even having the mindset of, I can get a goal here. So again, you're not affecting the game much with the ball. Out of the ball, are you getting into the right areas to go and score goals? You're not doing it. So again, the performance 2 out of 10 for sure. But looking at Kai Havertz from a wider perspective, right? Like, again, this was a player that I wasn't a big fan of in the Bundesliga. I didn't really rate that highly. At the time, people saying, "Oh, he's much better than Sancho, this or the other," and I was strongly saying that I'm not a big fan of him. I don't like him that much as a player. I don't think he'd do that great for us. And to be fair, Sancho hasn't done that great in the Premier League either, so I'll admit that one. But with Kai Havertz, I wasn't a big fan of him, and obviously he came to Chelsea. We had to give him time because of obviously adapting to a new league. He had COVID, this, that, and the third. Obviously, he turned up in some big games, including, of course, the Champions League final. And even despite the goal in the Champions League final, again, this is a game that I've watched back 2 or 3 times. it's one of, if not his best performance in a Chelsea shirt. I thought he was excellent that entire game.
Mm.
And we've just not seen enough of that Kai Havertz, even over long
Real
stretches of form. We've just
Real
not
Madrid
seen
he
it.
was good. It's just patches, isn't it? You know, like Real Madrid he was good. There was
Mm.
I know there was a moment where Lukaku and Werner got injured last season, and then he was playing up front with Ziyech and I think Hudson-Odoi and Mount and whatever. And even then,
Yeah.
even though he weren't scoring goals, he was effective for me. I still think he was effective in what he was doing. I'm not getting anything from him at the moment. You know, I don't see that determination in him anymore, that hunger to try and
Mm.
be effective. And even with the ball at his feet, we talk about him technically being quite sound with the ball at his feet and balanced. And I saw it. The reason why we say this is when you rewind it back to like the Real Madrid or the Champions League period where we won it, and that period of where he started coming into form. You saw a player who just looked, I don't know if the right word, but elegant, like off the ball. Like in terms of like good touch with the ball, like 1-2s, running in behind, stretching defenses, physically, like, all right, he's not the strongest, but aerially, winning headers, threat in the box. Like, he's not that. He just lost that, and that's just gone. And I think that's why people say, what is he? What does he do? Like, how do we, what do we benefit with Kai Havertz on the pitch? And I always say that if we're going to get the best out of him, I'll stick by saying this. To get the best out of Kai Havertz, he has to play that 10 role, which means that he has to play off someone closely, like we saw yesterday. He just needs to and then it's going to be on him to pull through and do what, and show us and do it. At the moment, it's not looking good. People were saying out this, that, and the other, get him out. But a year ago, no one was saying that, So it's like, I get the whole
Well, I
thing
mean,
of like.
I was saying that, but again, I was in a
Right.
minority. And
What I would say is, was the majority of this fan base saying Kai Havertz out last year? No one was, were they? Do you know what I mean?
no, they didn't see the light, but now they have, which is good to see.
Yeah,
But again, they were late to the party. It is what it is.
it
Again,
is
I don't
what it
like
is.
scapegoating on players and like throwing them under the bus after one bad performance. I like people to keep the same energy that they had for them. And if you've backed Kai Havertz, then continue to back him, even though he had a very poor game and he's not had a good start to the season. I mean, like,
No,
it's not been a good start at all to the season.
I always I've always been like this. I've done it with players last season. I will give players the season, even if they're playing crap. I will call it out like we just did now. Not good enough. But at the same time, it's down to him now to show us that that he is valuable, that he can be used, that he can be effective, and that will be to the end of this season. Some people are using it already now to say he's trash as ever, and maybe they're right, and then maybe it will be the case that he leaves and he goes on and does good things elsewhere, which I think could still be the case. But at Chelsea, it does beg the question, doesn't it, to try and understand why in the last couple of seasons forwards just, it doesn't matter if you're a winger, striker, whatever it is, struggle to really work at this football club at the moment. Because since Eden Hazard, I don't think anyone that's come in and played in that forward line has been great or consistent. Have they?
Yeah,
Really?
for sure. Oh no, none of them have been, and again, it comes down to many reasons. Again, obviously, like I've said, we are like a control-based side, and I don't think naturally we play to the strengths of our attackers as a team. I think managers haven't always gotten the best out of certain attackers in terms of playing them in their best position, playing to their strengths. I don't think we've done that either. But again, we've also not had any players on the level of an Eden Hazard. And if you look at someone like a Kai Havertz, he's not got, again, those three things that I mentioned before that you really judge the top players on. Is have they got top creativity? He's not that. Is he great dribbler? I mean, his dribbling numbers are absolutely pathetic. I mean, that same step over that he does onto the right side, like nobody's buying that, bro. Like, leave that out. You've not got that. You're
Yeah,
not good, bro. Stop
I know
doing
what
that.
you're saying. Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, and then is he a top finisher? He's not clinical. No. Like he doesn't generally generate much power in his shots. He doesn't do that either. In terms of like again the chances that I mentioned he could have got from Broya's cutbacks, he didn't read those either. Like so he's not good at those three main things that I talk about in terms of being a top attacker. Now, does he have strengths? Yes, he is good at link up generally. He normally is quite a good technician, although again, the chance that I mentioned earlier that way Mason Mount found him in the box, that first touch was terrible. Like, let's be real, guys. If Lukaku took that first touch, Tim's would have been trending still till today on Twitter right now. Like that touch was horrendous, and that's from a player that we are talked about as being so technically secure. So again, when you look at Kai Havertz, it's a case of a player that yeah, he has some good attributes, but where is the intent in these games? Like I don't feel like opposition players and fans look at him and think, oh, he's going to be a big threat to us today. I don't ever see that. And in terms of his form over at his time at being at Chelsea. Like, we can look at obviously a lot of attackers and say that they've not done this, they've not done that, and that's all true. I think while we look at the system and say it's not benefit a lot of these players have just also not been good enough, not at least to the
True.
standard that we
I
should
agree with
expect
that.
from Chelsea. So
I
you look
agree with
at
that.
Mason Mount, right? Like, I think Mason Mount, despite all of his critics and whatnot, he still had good seasons in a Chelsea shirt. You can give him that, and that's where there is some credit in the bank, even when he has poor performances like he's had this season. Then you look at Christian Pulisic. He's obviously had plenty of bad performances, bad seasons for us, fair enough. But what he did at least give us and at least show us in the Chelsea shirt is that lockdown form where obviously came back from the lockdown period and he was electric. And even all the way up until the FA Cup final where he scored a goal, he was excellent in the game. Again, he was through on goal and then he pulled up his hamstring. And unfortunately, he's never really been the same player since then. But at least he's given us that. And I'm not saying that is enough to warrant a Chelsea shirt and say that he's good enough for Chelsea Football Club. But I'm just saying at least we saw an extended period of form. Whereas
Yeah.
Kai Havertz, we've barely
He's
seen
been
more than a month of good form at a time. Like, for honest, we've not seen that. And this is a player that has a lot of merit in the game. Again, even himself has quite an ego, not like in a bad way, but like, I'm sure he speaks big things of himself and big things of himself. And I think against West Ham, he scored the winner late on, right? And you thought maybe that's going to be a turnaround of the season. He he shushes the crowd, his own crowd, like
the biggest,
to like kind of shush the haters, which I thought was funny.
should,
But okay, I'm like, cool, do that if you want, but back it up with performances. And since then, he's not done that.
he shouldn't have done that. He
And
shouldn't have done that. I don't know why he did that, to be honest. But
I
at the
mean, if you're
same
gonna do
time,
that, perform, and he's just not performed. And again, for someone like me who's been a huge critic of the guy, and again, I want players to do well for my football club because if they win,
yeah,
I win, and we all win.
exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I've just had my doubts about him as a player. I've wanted him to prove me wrong for a long time, but he just hasn't done that. Again, I'm hopeful Bayern Munich come in the summer and cash in on him as the Muller replacement because I think he would actually do pretty well for them there. But
Of course
with
he
the way
would.
Chelsea are
Yeah,
set up right now, we need players who are decisive, who can win games on their own, with just the way that we're set up currently.
you're right.
And Kai Havertz cannot do that.
I think you're right. I think maybe he's not the right profile in what we have currently right now. Does that make sense? Because if he goes to Bayern Munich, he would probably fit quite nicely because there's always a Müller role made there for him to just fit in and play with Mane and Sane and Coman and all these great players. Do you know what I mean? So maybe it's a different type of system, a different type of idea, but. It's like I said, I will, and I know like some people will be on one side. Most people will be on one side and say he's finished. For me, I always stick by what I say, and I will give him to the end of the season. And I do it with most of my players. At the end of the day, until they can prove how useful they are or not useful, and that's it. It is what it is for me. Like he's not been good enough, and if he continues with his form, he won't play. I don't think, and. It will only end sour and he will go and it will be that we lost 70 million. It was a bad signing by the board. The wrong
Sorry, but
decision.
just on that point that you made there, like, again, everything that you say, that it's fair to give him time. And like everything that I said, I stand by it in terms of being very critical of him. But when people say that, oh, he's finished, they're like, okay, now you're just going too far. Like, the guy's still 23, 24. Whether I don't think he's going to do well for Chelsea Football Club, but you're not finished at that age. There's still plenty of time for him to pull it around or whatever, right? Like, for example, even Iwobi at Everton, different level, obviously granted, but Iwobi's turning it around for Everton. Like, you've seen him now, like, being one of the best midfielders so far in the league this season for me. They're offering him a new bumper deal contract. So again, it's possible for players to turn it around at clubs no matter where they are at. But for me, with Havertz, I just don't see it. So he's not finished, but I don't see him doing the business for us.
Unfortunately, Chelsea is one of them teams at the moment where if you come as a forward, there's a lot of pressure, and there's not many that have performed since Eden Hazard or any. It's a lot, and I think you're right. I think there's specific. What you said earlier is true. There's specific, like in what we need right now. We need specific profiles and then them specific profiles come in and then have to be consistent, but they will have. I think with their ability, I think that you'll see that the way that we play will be better. It's just that. And that's why I said about this current crop of forwards that we've had since Tuchel, since Lampard. I just think the previous regime have just gone and bought chalk and cheese forwards that haven't been able to build up any chemistry, which is why you've seen Thomas Tuchel switch them so many times. And part of the reason why we're still doing that now, all right, we need rotation and whatever, it's just probably because that we're not fully sure on them working in a certain way consistently. And I think Sterling and Aubameyang are probably now certains in this team throughout the season. They'll hold their positions until proven otherwise. You know what I mean? So they're gonna kick on, and they have in early parts of the seasons done that. But when you talk about Havertz and Ziyech, and maybe you can even throw Pulisic in there, and Werner's already gone anyway, and Lukaku's gone, whatever. But you know, when you look at them at that crop that we had last season, I just don't see it as being the right mixture, if that makes sense. But we move anyway. We move from Kai Havertz. We're flying to Armando Broja, who first starting game for Chelsea. What do you think? I mean, I thought he, again, was it because of what was behind him? He wasn't really getting the fed enough, but then he come alive and he made some real good sprints. But I mean, how quick is this boy? Blind me. He is quick. 33.8 miles an hour. He was logged on speed at one point. Sprinting. I didn't know he was that quick. And, you know, strong, tongue, quick. He's got all the attributes to become a very good player. The only thing that lets him down from what I saw yesterday is his decision making. Once he gets in them positions, you know, he looks down too much. If he'd looked up and saw Mason Mount next to him, he may have been 1-0 up. You know, especially when he'd done all of that hard work. And, you know, I don't know, maybe I just feel that he can do that because he's 19 years old or whatever, you know, like he's gonna, or is it 21? He's 21 years old. He's 21 years old and he's still very young, and he's gonna have these moments and he's gonna grow into the player that he's gonna grow in, but he needs to be given minutes to do that. And yesterday, you know, I would have left him on the pitch. I wouldn't have took him off. I would have left him on and put Aubameyang on, Sterling on, and just gone for it. That's what I would have done till we can get a goal. But you know, it's I was kind of impressed with him. I thought he worked hard. He made things. Do you know what I liked about him? He made it when things weren't flowing, and it wasn't in the first half. He kind of done that kind of thing of like trying to make things happen for himself, like what Costa used to do. You know, like just trying to make things happen. Even if it's a ball that don't go to him and it goes over the top, he runs for it. You know, and he makes it for himself. He makes things happen for himself, and that's the type of players I want in my team, because they're the players that will, in them type of games, get you wins. You know, eventually, especially when you're not flowing well and playing well and linking up well and transitions are not moving well. He done that yesterday. You know, he's trying to make things happen off the ball, off when he didn't get the ball, and you know, and he had some really good moments in the game yesterday. For me, he was a 7. For me personally, I just feel like his decision making at the last minute let him down a bit, and he should have looked up a bit more. But maybe that will come with time. But what are you saying, Ford?
Yeah, I mean, I echo a lot of those same thoughts, bro. Again, I've been very keen to see him get a start and a chance and opportunity in this team. And he certainly made an impression. I think that's for sure. I think you can see he's raw, very raw, but he's got a lot of the right attributes that you want in a striker. And I think certainly even on a bad day, I don't think yesterday was a bad day by any means, but even on a bad day, like he could still be a handful for defenders to deal with. And I think again, it can be similar to like a Darwin Núñez. I think let me just make it clear, Broja is a lot more technically polished than Darwin Núñez, right? But even when Darwin Núñez is having a bad game, like he runs the channels, he makes it difficult for defenders, and I think Broja has a lot of those same physical attributes. And yeah, I think he got into really good areas. Again, there were some overhit passes from like Kovacic, for example, where even though it was overhit, he made the most out of it. And there was obviously that chance where he's outpaced Ben-Mee. He then gets the ball, and obviously then there's the whole screenshot online of Mason Mount in space, and Broja doesn't cut it back. And obviously, yeah, in those situations, again, for the younger players, they need to develop over time of being able to get their head up in those situations and then make the right decision. Because for him, it's not even a case of making a decision. He just didn't have his head up to see Mason Mount was open. But it reminds me of, again, I don't know if you've been watching football as that long, but in fact, you're similar age to me, so you remember him. But remember Juan Pablo Angel for Aston Villa?
Yes.
Like he was a very tidy striker back in the day, but like he always used to have his head down. He always had his head down. That was his thing. Like he never really got his head up. Like a very good finisher, but he always had his head down. And obviously, that was a player he was experienced in the Premier League for a long time, and he never really developed the ability to keep his head up in key moments. And I think Broja over time will need to develop that. But again, despite that, and some other mistakes that he may have made, I still thought he had an impactful game, certainly more impactful than a lot of other starting attacking players. I think a 7 is fair. I think I'd give him the same. And yeah, I think obviously naturally Aubameyang will come in for the United game, and maybe even start the Salzburg game as well. But I certainly want to see Broja get more than just 10, 15 minutes off the bench. I want to see him get 20, maybe 30 minutes off the bench. I want to see him start more games this month because we've got a very packed schedule. So yeah, I'm excited about what he can bring to this team because yeah, again, maybe we'll get onto Aubameyang later when we talk about his rating. But as for Broja, I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about the other three forwards that come on real quickly and what they offered. Christian Pulisic. Uh, I thought he was quite effective. Don't get me wrong. He looked quite hungry. He had that decent shot, and but he had one moment where he kind of got the ball in the box and he lost it twice in the space of 10 seconds. And I was just like, wrong decision making, Pulisic. You should have just played that quicker. Like, he has that a little bit in his game still, but in terms of his overall what he offered on the pitch, I thought he was probably, in terms of impact and how much things change, I think he was probably a 7 for me. I thought he looked quite sharp. Deserves to start for Man United forward, do you think, or do you think it'll be Mount, Sterling, and Aubameyang?
I'd start all four versus United actually. I'd start all four of them. I think he definitely has shown. Again, I wouldn't say a cameo is ever enough to say you deserve a start, but given the form of Havertz, obviously Gallagher, obviously he was ill, but I don't think he looked great before that. Again, injury or illness aside, whatever, I still think Pulisic, at least based on other people's form, should get a chance. I think certainly with his performance yesterday, he was direct. He brought sort of the intention to our attacks that we were lacking with Kai Havertz for a lot of that game, and I want to see more of that from Pulisic because we can't pretend that now he's in great form because of a good cameo. Like, it's just a good cameo, and I think he was okay against Wolves. Obviously, he got his goal, but he had a lot of chances where he could have done more with those chances. So I want to see more from Pulisic, and I feel like he deserves at least a chance to have a run in the team. At least just give him a
Yeah,
chance to have at least 2 starts in the row because it's not like anybody else is doing that great. And at least today, and obviously off the back of scoring against Wolves, which will boost his confidence, he will at least have opportunity to show us something if he gets 2 games in a row. Because I think he can probably feel unlucky that he didn't get any other minutes since the Milan game, sorry, the Wolves game where he scored. So
yeah,
I'll be happy to see him start. I think for me, I'd probably give him a 7.5 just because of how effective he was.
he was. Yeah,
I think he was combining really well in that position, and
I
yeah,
think even.
I think I think
Yeah.
I'll be happy to see him start against United.
He's 24 now. Obviously, he's slowly becoming sort of, I'll say, towards his prime. But yeah, maybe Potter can get the trick out of him. Maybe Potter is the guy and in his system to get the best out of Christian Pulisic. But we need to give him minutes, and I agree with that. I think he deserves to have minutes, especially in the way that certain others are performing as well. Raheem Sterling played as a wing back, had a really good chance in front of goal. I wasn't impressed with him at Villa. I'll be honest with you again. I felt like he came on and offered more than maybe what the others did in that small period of time. But again, yeah, like you said, with Raheem Sterling and the wages and what we've got him in for and whatever, you expect him when we have them moments in front of goal to be a bit more clinical, especially with his output anyway. I don't know. For me, I'd say Pulisic was more of an effective person than Raheem Sterling was in the game for me. So I'd probably say Sterling was a 6 from what I saw, but I think Sterling's been a little bit off for a while. If it reminds me, I've been saying it for a while. I don't really see him being as effective as he was the first couple of games. With his running and dropping in and I don't know. I haven't seen that as of recent. I know whether that's again because of where we're playing him or whatever, but yeah, it wasn't a massive great performance. I hope Man United he comes alive and steps up and we win the game though. But yeah, 6 probably 6 or a 6.5 for me. What are you saying, Ford?
I mean, I'll probably just give him a 5.5 if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Listen, I kind of get what Poch trying to do playing him as a wing back, and to be fair, even yesterday coming off the bench because we had I've said the word a lot of times today, but we had a bit more control of the game at times second half, having more possession in their half. We were able to get Sterling into positions that we want to see him in because he's a goal scorer, and he got into those positions and he didn't take advantage. And I just think with Sterling, like really, we're just seeing what we've seen from him the last 18 months at Man City. If we're completely honest, he hasn't been great for them, like in recent years, which is why he's not been starting as much under Pep, and why he wanted to leave and get first team football, and that's what he's come here for. But I didn't want him just to come here and be a part of the team because, again, at Man City, he could just be a part of their attack because they had so many great attackers, and he was like a secondary or even tertiary attacking option. You think of their front threes of the time when Aguero was there, Sane, he was Young Player of the Year on multiple occasions. Like that was a great, formidable front three, and he was a good part of that. He was never like the leading guy for that. Whereas for us, he's kind of come and had to kind of be that leading guy, or at least that's what we were brought him to do. And I don't think he's gonna really be that guy. He can maybe put up good numbers and I guess we'll see, like, if he can do that. But obviously, not great from what we've seen in recent weeks. And I think just on the wing back thing, because I think that kind of divides opinion in the fan base. Like, I kind of get what Potter's trying to do, because from those wide positions, he can again be a threat at the back post. I certainly think defensively he can't have the responsibility of being a wing back off the ball. Like, I think we just need to leave him as like a left mid, and then have, like, whether it's Cucurella playing left centre back, kind of then move to being a left back and defending the four, if Sterling's going to be our quote unquote wing back in possession. And I think, yeah, in that position he can give us a bit of like 1v1 ability, dribble at players, take players on, and then be a threat from the back post, whether it's from like low driven balls or just poaching like he's done for many years at Man City. But overall, again, I would give him a 5.5. But overall, in general, with Sterling, we just need to see more. Like, we can't wait on him having these poor runs of form, because we need him. We need our players up front to deliver and perform in big games. United coming up, Arsenal coming up, he has to turn up.
100%. I agree. This is, and we have got a very tricky schedule coming up, guys, as well. It's going to be really interesting to see how we perform in this period of time. Obviously, Graham Potter's got no losses against his name as well. So, you know, this is going to be the test. Obviously, no Reece James as well, and others, and Fofana and that. But, you know, it's going to be a challenge. I mean, Aubameyang is someone that didn't start, but obviously came on as well. He looked quite effective as soon as he came on, linking up play. He looked much better yesterday than he did at Villa. I tell you that, at Villa he didn't even look interested. He looked very disinterested. But yesterday he came on and, you know, linked up well. And I do think if we had another 15, 20 minutes, we would have scored in that game. I really do. It was getting to that point where I felt like, you know, with the dominance and the way the game was going, they was coming. It was because of, you know, him coming on and Pulisic, and we just looked more effective, you know. And I wish Potter would have just done this earlier. This is why I say yesterday's drawing game with them was partly to do with what Potter, you know, with Potter as well, just purely because of the time and the substitutions. But when he came on, you know, he looked sharp, done his thing, brought something different. We looked more flowing. We looked more like dangerous on the other end as well. And this is why he will be starting against Man United, you know, because he has the ability to cause problems along with, you know, Sterling. Hopefully, if you can sort himself out, and maybe if Pulisic's given a chance and Mount in that mix as well, it could really be effective if we can get some consistency between them. You know, that's the big thing. So for me, he was probably a 6.5 or a 7 maybe, just because of the effect of when he came on. He linked up play well with Sterling and Pulisic, one-touch football and stuff, and made runs behind. So maybe a 6.5 is what I'll probably say on this one. What are you saying?
Yeah, I thought in general play he looked better yesterday. Again, he's had some performances recently where he's not been the best on the ball, and again, I don't really expect that much from him in terms of that, because I know he's just really more of a poacher these days, especially because he's lost a bit of his pace from his absolute prime. And ultimately, he's going to be like, Aubameyang's going to be judged on how many goals he gets for Chelsea, because that's all he's really been brought to do. He's a poacher. He's somebody who lives on the last line, and we're hoping to see a clinical version of Aubameyang, because we didn't see that towards the end at Arsenal. He missed a lot of chances and obviously fell out of favour with Arteta. He was then pretty good for Barcelona, who obviously are a team that create a lot of chances. So hopefully he can be part of this team that creates a lot of chances here and then can put those chances away. I think that's ultimately where Aubameyang's going to be either success or another victim of the number 9 curse. So we'll see with that. But yesterday's performance, I thought he didn't have enough time. Again, Potter, I wish he brought him on earlier, because Kai Havertz was just not good. Moving him up front didn't really make any sense given his performance as like a number 10. So I'll probably give Aubameyang just a 6 from yesterday. But again, another player that it has a big reputation on big money, has performed in big games in the past for other teams. So we need him in these upcoming games against United, Arsenal, even Brentford, even Brighton coming up. Potter's old team, they're I think still in the top 7 or 8. So yeah, we're going to need Aubameyang to turn up in these games as well, man.
100%. Yeah, you know, it is what it is. We didn't lose. We got the point. We go on to Man United. If we beat Man United, that point maybe don't look as bad, you know. But yeah, it's going to be a challenging couple of games coming up for Chelsea as well. Been a good show, mate. Thanks for coming on forward. First time as well. I've enjoyed it, man. It's been a good show. Nearly 2 hours we've done here as well. Been good. I want guys to make sure you're smashing the like button, guys. As always, subscribe to both GNA TV and Chelsea Fan TV as well. Forward, where can people find you? Let them know what your Twitter at is, isn't it? So they can find you as well.
My Twitter is right there on the screen, at @forward_100. You're going to find a lot of controversial opinions on the likes of Kai Havertz and many others. But yeah, no, I appreciate you getting me on, bro. And
That's good, man.
hopefully we see some better performances in the upcoming weeks because there's some big games coming up. Again, United, it's a team that we've drawn a lot of games against recently. So yeah, man, I'm just hoping for 3 points there and better performances from certain individuals, man. So we move.
Yeah, sorry I've not been able to open the lines today, guys. It was kind of an unpredicted sort of line. I mean, me and Forward had a lot to talk about, to be honest. So it kind of just dominated, to be fair. But yeah, we will be definitely opening up the lines on the next show a lot earlier to get you guys in and have your say as well on the game. We have got Man United. Obviously, we could try and get a match preview in for that if I can, maybe in the evening tomorrow. But other than that, I want to say big up to every. Oh yeah, someone said about. Yeah, I forgot about Carney. Blooming hell. Very good when he came on. Very good when he came on. He looked quite effective. I liked him from what I saw. You know, he had that like Ruben way about him in terms of driving forward with the ball, decision making, letting down a little bit, but in terms of like ability on the ball and being a bit of a nuisance, an issue, the link play. You know, he looks like he has the vision as well. He looked good as well. I'd give him probably a 6.5, maybe a 7 at a whack. But yeah, I mean, Carney, quickly on that forward, I forgot to mention him. What did you think of him coming on?
Yeah, I can't believe we forgot to talk about him. Actually, that was again one of the positives from yesterday.
Happy birthday to him as well. It's his birthday today, so happy birthday to Carney.
Oh, yeah, big him up, man. Big up, man. Listen, we saw what we saw like from some of his games at Aston Villa, from what I saw at least of him, and he's a very good ball carrier. Like, and he's got a bit of the Ruben about him, of course, being quite a big frame, but very good at dribbling the ball up the pitch, good technically. Got into some good areas, man, and I think it's very positive game for him. He almost scored at the end. It was a good save from David Raya with his feet. Again, people are saying he could maybe cut it back instead, but it was positive that he tried to go for the shot. Could have went through the keeper's leg. So ultimately quite positive from him. So I want to see more from him, sure. And yeah, I'll probably give him a 6.5. But happy for him that he could at least come on, get enough minutes in that game. It wasn't just like token minutes. It was big minutes in an important game. So happy for him.
You can definitely see that there's a talent, like there is something there with him, can't you? And I can see why we signed him on as well, because you know he the frame of him, he's quite, you know, he's not slow as well. I just want to see him on the final third, how effective he is and his decision making in the final third more. I think that will come with time as well. But yeah, you know, good to see. Good to see him given the chance. Potter giving him a chance as well, you know. And hopefully these boys are the future of this football club that can then elevate us, and maybe stop Chelsea going out buying all these players to you know, bring us to where we are now, and rather than just rely on bringing them through slowly and then become these big name players, which is what I'm sure is the aim. But Tom says amazing guest forward. Would love some more positivity, as they got to Tom as well.
Appreciate it, bro.
Guys. Yeah, guys, take care of yourself. I'll be back again very soon. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you again. Peace out.